Youngpreneurs Podcast, episode number 122 with your host, Victor Ahipeni. What's up, world? Another day, another podcast, and super happy to have you here. And this is going to be awesome. If you've ever heard the term, which I think is sometimes overused, growth hacking, then prepare to have your minds blown because I've got David Arnoux on the show. And he is an actual growth hacker, not a person who uses Buffer to automate his Facebook posts, but somebody who's actually looking at analytics, using numbers, and finding out how to massively boost businesses. He's been doing it for over 10 years, and he's become really good at driving people to websites, making them sign up and start paying. Now, this is a process that's been used a ton of times. We talk about the different tools that he uses, the different strategies, the books that he has learnt from, and he's trained over 500 different people and companies on technical marketing and building growth models. So this is perfect for anybody. If you're just setting up your business, you can implement some of these strategies early, and if you're looking to scale up your business, this is going to be absolutely perfect. So make sure you tune in. And speaking of going over to websites, I'm not going to charge you anything, but I do have some cool resources that you can get on how to start your first online business at passiveincomeyoung.com, where we also have all the show notes that you can grab with all the links that we talk about in this episode, as well as all our other previous episodes. If you get the chance, jump over to iTunes, leave us a rating and a review. I'd love to hear what you have to say. I love seeing them come in. And finally, if you're looking to jump into a tribe of awesome people who are on the same journey as you, make sure to search Young Entrepreneurs Mastermind on Facebook and request to join. We're 500 strong, and it is an amazing group of people. So with all that said and done, make sure to grab a pen and paper. There's going to be a lot you want to take down in this episode, and I will see you on the other side.
You're listening to the Youngpreneurs Podcast, the number one resource online for under 35-year-olds, where we chat twice a week to the most inspiring entrepreneurs in the world. We have it all. If you're looking for inspiration, guidance, or actionable tips to help you transition from that job into a business, or if you're ready to take that business to a whole new level, then this is the place to be. Get ready to live life on your own terms. Youngpreneurs, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Youngpreneurs Podcast. Super happy to have you here, as I think you're going to get a lot of value out of it, because I think I'm going to get a lot of value out of this interview. I love growth hacking, and we have got the co-founder and head of growth at Growth Tribe, which is Europe's number one growth hacking academy, based out of Amsterdam. And we're going to delve into exactly what it is, but first off, I'd just like to welcome David Arnoux. Which
Good one. Good job.
Yes, I got it. So we had I was sitting there saying how I was going to likely get that wrong, but I think I've got it at least. At least well enough that you know who he is. So welcome to the show, man. It's awesome to have you on.
Thanks a lot, Victor. Super excited. Thanks a bunch.
So we got a ton of young entrepreneurs out there. A lot of them have got that kind of story that sits in the back of their head about why they can't be an entrepreneur, and other people have a silver platter, or they've got skills that others don't, that they had growing up. I love to dispel that myth that a lot of people hold by getting a bit of a background on what it is that you had growing up. Like, were you an entrepreneur from the age of 3, or did you have entrepreneurial parents, or was that something that you always had in the back of your mind, or was it something that developed later on?
Yeah, so actually I think it's two things. I think it was a little bit inside me, because I've got stories of my mother telling me that when I was 12 I wanted to launch an elastic band factory. That was kind of random. But then what happened is, actually it was really an iterative process for me. I thought that I wanted to work in an ad agency, or maybe in a bank, at a pretty early age, like maybe a little bit later than 16, so 17 or 18. And like with everything that I sort of do, I wanted to test that as soon as possible. And so looking back, actually, after the age of like 17 or 18, everybody would go on a sort of summer holiday during the summer. but I have sort of this achievement obsession. And I was like, no, I want to go do internships in the companies where I'd like to work in the future. So when I was like 17, I interned in an ad agency, right? What can be cooler than an ad agency? It was like Saatchi, really cool, really hip, a bunch of creative directors, artistic directors, etc. And that lasted for like 2-3 months, and I hated it. I mean, I absolutely hated it. Even that size of company was too big for me. I wasn't getting enough responsibilities. I didn't really like the products that we were working with. And it completely demystified this sort of ad agency aspect for me. And then the next year I did another internship, and I did it in a bank. I hustled my way into a bank in Vietnam, actually. Kind of hated that too. And then the year after that, I did it in a pharmaceutical company. I hated it as well. So basically, I'm just really happy that I was able to demystify that as soon as possible, and get those life lessons as soon as possible. And the main thing I learned was I didn't want to work for somebody. I didn't want to have to reply to somebody's needs. Or I had this boss in the bank. He was this guy with his pants up to his chin, and I just didn't have a lot of respect for him, etc. And I'm like, I never want to be in that situation where I have to work for someone ever again. I just want financial freedom, and I want freedom to choose who I work with on a day-to-day basis. So I should probably start building my own companies. And I built my first company at the age of 20, and have just been building companies ever since. I'm like 32 now, so that's what I've been doing for 12 years.
And over those, I mean, that's awesome. It's actually quite funny, because I'm writing a book, I guess, on ways that I've got in touch with different influencers for this podcast, for how people can bust out of what they're currently doing to become authorities or show their expertise more in their industry by connecting with influencers. And I was actually writing that in the introduction that I was tidying up today, was how podcasting came about for me, which on a slightly side note was I did a lot of public speaking at school, and I was thinking about doing broadcasting, and then years later I was like, oh, this is kind of full circle coming back to it. And I said, when you're 17 and making the decision on what you're going to do for the rest of your life, and
you're right.
And it's just it's such a ridiculous thing. Like, school just brings us up, and then it's like, all right, you have no idea about what it's actually like to work in any of these industries, but you're good at accounting, so you should probably be an accountant or a scientist or whatever. And it's absolutely absurd. So well done on being able to skip out of that. But talk about, I guess, what for those out there, because I'm sure there's a lot that don't know, what is growth hacking?
Yeah, so maybe I'll talk a little bit about the company and then go into what growth hacking is. So we've developed Growth Hack, Europe's first growth hacking academy. And so what we do is we're basically a training company, and we build what we call buzzword name dropping now. It's like growth marketeers or technical marketeers. So growth marketeer or growth team is basically like a small, data-driven, multidisciplinary team aimed at scaling a business. And a growth hacker is somebody who can leverage marketing channels, so who's good at marketing, who understands coding and automation, who understands web analytics and data, and who also understands behavioral psychology, so who understands human beings and understands how to influence them, what ticks them, understands that people nowadays have the attention of absolute goldfish. And at Growth Tribe, at our academy, what we do is we help companies and individuals grow faster through continuously educating growth experts. We want to make sure that marketeers are held to the same level of quality as developers are. There's no reason why marketing is still this sort of weird, fluffy term, whereas a developer you can test in like an hour or two whether he's a good developer or not. Should be the same case for sort of marketeers. What we see is that there's like 110 million coders out there. Everybody's building cool shit. Everybody's just coding cool stuff. One of our guys last week, he built something called the Growth Hacking Grader. 5 years ago, that might have taken him like 2 months to build it. Now with available frameworks and tools, it took him literally 6 hours to build the first version. So you have this sea of noise and clutter that everybody's trying to grab everybody's attention. And by leveraging behavioral psychology, creative marketing, coding, automation, and experimentation, you can actually target the right people at the right cost and convert them as soon as possible and as fast as possible. And that's what we teach individuals and companies at the moment. And it's really a lot of fun. Really stressful because it's always changing. Like what we were teaching 6 months ago has already changed. It's not working anymore. But it's also really a lot of fun.
And so for people out there,
yeah.
who's your ideal client? Who's the people that you work with? Like what type of businesses or individuals do you work with or train?
So it's funny because when we came in, we thought we would only train startups. So we work with a lot of startups. We only work with high potential startups or startups that have product market fit. For any of the listeners, just Google what product market fit is. It's serving the right product to the right market. And then actually what happened is the banks, large corporations started calling us and they were like, hey, could you introduce growth hacking within our larger organization because we're too slow, we're not innovative enough, et cetera, et cetera. So we started working with large banks, large insurance companies, large telecom companies. And we also started working with just, I don't know what you would call it, like middle management. So in adult education. So somebody who's been a marketeer in a larger organization or a small and medium-sized company for the past 5-6 years. And he just feels that he's not cutting edge enough and he needs to increase his technical growth skills. They would come to see us and take one of our courses on how we can make him more of a technical marketeer, a better marketeer.
That's awesome. I mean, that's something that, yeah, like I talked to, say, my partner's mum, and she's sitting there going, nah, like, yeah, there's so much fear when you're in that middle space.
Absolutely.
that you're sitting there going, oh my God, there's all these young bucks, they must know more than me. Generally, they probably don't. Yeah, some of them do if they're coding, but yeah, that I think the fear just creeps in for a lot of these people. If they're like, I don't know social media, or I don't know, blah blah blah. I don't know Google AdWords or analytics, but yeah, I mean, they can read graphs and they can decipher trends and things because they've been doing it for years. It's just how do they do it without the clutter and with a framework, which I guess is what we all grow up with, is learn the fastest way to get from where you are to where you want to be is get a framework, and I guess that's what you guys are providing for people.
Yeah, and I think that the issue is that the tech field is evolving so rapidly, so channels come and go. User behaviors are also changing rapidly. People have shorter attention spans. They have bigger. Are we allowed to curse?
Yeah.
A little bit? Okay, yeah. So people have like bigger bullshit radars. You can't get away with what you used to get away with. Put a bunch of testimonials on a landing page a few years back and people would actually believe that. People just don't believe testimonials anymore. Fake urgency, only 15 spots left, only 20 spots left. There's a lot of sort of disbelief of that kind of technique, even though it worked a while back. And what we also see is more and more we see the rise of automation and artificial intelligence, even in the marketing field. So our goal is a little bit to make people self-reliant and confident to use all of this new technology so that they can leverage the technology before the technology leverages them. And at the same time, you still have to keep that really core basic user understanding, so understanding the human being as well. So it's not good enough to just use a bunch of tools and look at a bunch of data. You also have to understand your consumer. And we try to build people into what we call these T-shaped players, who are good with the technology, but who are also obsessed with understanding what are the needs of their customers. I mean, even your podcast, people are solving a pain with your podcast. And the best format to solve that pain is through listening to these 30-minute action-packed podcasts, and you were able to reach product market fit with it. But that's not the same solution that everybody would have. And it's really this user-centric approach plus technology approach that is sort of this magic potion.
And so from I know it's quite hard to differentiate the two, but if you're going into the psychological understanding of your consumer, where do you think people are missing the boat with it the most? Like, what are some of the, I guess, the pitfalls to watch out for anyone out there who's starting their own business or looking to scale?
Well, I mean, if you're starting your business, there's a really cool book called The Mom Test. I don't know if you've heard of this one. Yeah. It's asking the right questions, so your mother will always say yes. to a good idea. People want to please you. So if you tell somebody I want to start a new shake, protein shake or something, they'll always say, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea." So actually, there's certain ways of asking questions to make sure that they're not lying to you, and usually it's using like past behavior. So when's the last time you had a protein shake? Oh, I don't drink protein shakes. Oh, okay, so actually it's not a good idea for you. You're not my target market. You were lying to me to make me happy. That's more in like new business ideas. And then for scaling, that's a completely different set of questions. It's more running usability tests, analyzing large amounts of data and segmenting the data, and a lot of talking to your customers. I mean, what we're doing is not like that magical. We usually say that you should talk to at least one customer per day. There's no excuse nowadays with the amount of technology available not to talk to at least one of your customers per day. And all the big growth hacks that we've had, all the big insights or improvements to business models or to our metrics have always come through talking to customers, always.
Yeah, I found a cool one when I was looking at creating a product that someone talked to me about, and it was doing kind of a market interview on pains and problems and solutions and things like that, and then saying what would you pay for that, and just kind of that mum test side of things. And if they say $1,000, okay, well I'm willing to give it to you. I haven't created it yet. I'm going to create it. I'm willing to give it to you for $500 or $300 right now if you're willing to lock it in. And then they go, oh no, and it's like, well, are you just telling me what I want to hear? Or is it something, if you've reached out to the right person, obviously, is it why would you not pay $300 for it right now? And then you kind of start really delving into, is it them, or is it that they don't actually really want that product?
Exactly. And then you've just created two new hypotheses, which you're going to have to test then with the next experiment. Was it them? Is it another target audience? So then you iterate and you go to another target audience and try to sell it to them. And you don't have to do this. So a lot of people say talk to your customers. You can actually talk to your customers without getting out of your house. There's a really one that's been commoditized. It's called landing page experiments. So you just pull up a landing page with the value proposition that you're trying to sell. You run a few ads from Facebook where you can really, really, really target the customers that you want to reach. So you can create 5 or 6 different target segments that you think are your best customers, and you just drive them to the page and see if people sign up, and maybe create a fake checkout form and see if people start to put their credit card information. If they do, that's an early signal that you've got something big. If they don't, that means it doesn't mean your business isn't good. It means that you've still got some hypotheses that you need to validate. Is it that they need a longer time to think about it? The price wasn't right. You didn't explain your value proposition correctly. This isn't the right customer segment. And you try to identify what's the riskiest hypothesis from all of these questions that you ask yourself. And then you create a next experiment. But this is actually much closer to sort of the lean methodology and to lean startup. What we try to do is we try to find ways to scale companies that have already validated all of these points. And we say, okay, how can you scale faster than the competition in a smaller amount of time? The process is exactly the same. It's rapid experimentation. You need to run tests every week on your assumptions. So even in our company, we have almost like no egos. And we don't really believe in 5, 6, 10-year visions. A little bit like how I was explaining my career path. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing. So we validate everything with data. And we've got guys like Jim or Job or Quinton or Esther. And they've all got assumptions about how we can make the company bigger, how we can scale it faster. And we just test that as soon as possible. We build what we call minimum viable experiments. So what's the experiment that I can run that takes me the shortest amount of time to validate or invalidate through data that your idea is right or is wrong? Oh, maybe it's just sending an email to 100 people, seeing if they open the bloody thing. Because if they don't open it, it doesn't matter what I put in it.
Yeah, well, that's exactly true. And I think a lot of people, I interviewed one of my friends the other day, and he was saying, if you're not emailing your list once a week, he's a copywriter. He's like, you obviously don't like money, which. But like so many people out there, they have these lists and they're not using them for things like that, like testing on something that you could potentially sell or are selling anyway. And if it doesn't work, then segment and test further. And it's that, like I had a 3-way mastermind call with a couple of friends yesterday and got a new idea for something that I'm working on, and that's what I'll be working on all tomorrow, creating the landing pages and chucking out some ads and seeing if it works. And we're in this world where you can just pivot, change, and I don't know if this is just me, and you've probably got more of an insight having worked with over 500 different companies and people. I think the fear of failure, people really want that perfect launch, that perfect landing page, that perfect whatever, and they don't want to put it out there and they go, oh, that didn't work, I failed, rather than that didn't work, that gave me a solution. And it's easy to say, but it's often harder to do.
We usually say, in the company, we sell first and build later. So first you sell it, then you build it. And my default, and a lot of the people in our team, our default is that we're wrong 95% of the time. So we have no idea what's going to work or not. And, I was listening to the early days of Facebook, a talk by Chamath, who was VP of Growth at Facebook. And he admits it. He's like, we had no idea what we were building. What we built was based on customer feedback and based on the data. So my advice would be put something out there as soon as possible, gather data as soon as possible, and keep iterating as fast as possible. We have 6 products right now. Maybe half of the products were pretty close to what they were supposed to be originally. All the rest, it's just been through iteration and testing and just customer feedback.
And it's interesting you talk about that, because something that's obviously quite topical now is Pokemon Go. And they're not I was just reading an article today about them not iterating fast enough. And I know it's a ridiculously, complex software, but they're not, they've got this massive database and they're getting all this feedback from these customers.
Yeah.
And they haven't been fulfilling it, and they're getting this massive, delete of the app because they haven't been ticking off some of the things. And it's that hard thing. They've obviously, hopefully had the resources in place to do it, but they haven't been giving the product that everyone wanted all the way through.
That's really interesting, actually. Yeah, I haven't read that one, but what I see with Pokemon Go is that they're like the exact opposite of growth hacking in a way. Because they use 0 push notifications. They didn't have any virtual social mechanics. They have no concept of game stamina or fatigue. It's not stable and it crashes constantly. And a lot of people are saying, growth hacking is bullshit. Because you got a company like Pokemon Go. Well, first of all, Pokemon, a brand that's been around for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like overnight success. And then with what you're saying, it's interesting that actually maybe their life will be short-lived because they're not using any of these mechanics. So please send that article over after the talk. I'd love to.
I'll track it down. And I mean, the other interesting thing with that is they had, and I never used it, but Ingress, which was like that's where they got all these Pokestops from, was a previous software that they'd put out called Ingress.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, it's not like it's this new thing, but
exactly. I
mean, I was amazed that how were they not offering sponsorship for the Pokestops if they're outside your business, that you could have that, like you could monetize through that, like before you swipe you have to look at the deal that's inside that store and things like that. I was like, oh my god, how did you not come out with that? But anyway, I mean, I'm sure you'd hope that they'd work through some of those logistics. With your side of your business, when was it always purely the growth hacking side of things for other businesses as well, or had this come across through trial and error in your own businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I've been building businesses in competitive areas for the past 10 years. So I was in factory software, then I was in e-commerce, I was in import-export, and then I was in productivity tools, online productivity tools, all very saturated markets. So Peter Thiel, he usually says that timing is more important than market size, which is more important than team, which is more important than product. And I totally agree with that. You see that timing is actually the number one most important thing. There's a bit of luck in timing. And so actually being in those competitive fields, even if I had had the best product in the world and the best team in the world, the timing wasn't right for some of my previous companies. And we completely iterated into this growth hacking training business. At first we were a consulting firm. And before that, I was implementing growth hacking within a productivity tool, a SaaS business. And I was using every single tip, trick, technique, data analysis to get the revenue to grow. And we just weren't growing fast enough. And so that led me to saying, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this data analysis, behavioral psychology, so I could go into consulting. And then the consulting business model was good, but it was hard to scale. And then we saw that the training business model was a lot more interesting, and there was a much bigger need, and it was the right timing to start training very large amounts of these technical marketeers, because there's a huge lack of talent in Europe, I would say, maybe also in the US and around Australia and New Zealand, but in Europe there's a huge lack of talent for technical marketeers. Marketeers are way too dependent on developers, whereas you should be able to just do your own stuff. If you have an idea, you should be able to implement it technologically yourself. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it as someone who can't, say, code or develop at all. Things like ClickFunnels means, I can implement something myself fairly quickly. I can add a few links and use their templates, basically make a website and throw it out there.
Absolutely.
And Facebook can guide me through the ad side of things. I mean, I understand that area a bit quicker, but if I then want to take it to the next level, I can get somebody who's got more expertise in there. But it's if that was 5 years ago and I had to start trying to code landing pages and add in all these extra things, it would have been definitely outside of my realm.
Yeah, and like what you just said is you can validate the initial assumptions yourself. Like what you said, just pull up a website, drive some traffic to it, so that then when you do contact that specialist, you know exactly what he needs to do, and you're not going to lose 3, 4, 5 months of him building the wrong thing, building the wrong funnel, or targeting the wrong people on ads. And that's the point. It's getting rid of all those early assumptions as soon as possible. It's all about limiting risk. The scarcest resource we have in small companies and startups is time. So we need to be focused. The only way to focus is to work on the stuff that matters. The only way to work on the stuff that matters is to test assumptions.
What's the biggest skill set that you bring to your team?
You mean my maybe more, so the behavioral psychology, conversion rate optimization, and having the right framework, so sort of the growth experimentation framework. Having said that, I believe that the people in my team are actually a lot smarter than me. So, you always say like...
Good place to be.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit scary sometimes, but you just got to hire people that are smarter than you. Because it's that thing, that old adage, I don't know what it is, like... A player has to hire an A player because a B is going to hire a C and a C is going to hire a D. So and then it's easier said than done to hire people that are smarter than you. But that's why things like culture and branding and your company identity are so important. Also salary, in order to hire those people. Does that answer the question? I can't even remember the question.
Well, obviously in any company, and especially with founders, you can start off with every skill in the world, but not being that great at it, and then your skills will come to the fore as you grow a team. But you've obviously worked in the productivity scheme of things with previous businesses, and obviously with this as well. What's some tools that you use in your business from day to day for productivity hacking?
Okay, so I use Freedom app. So I think the number one killer of productivity is notifications. So that's pretty funny coming from a marketeer, where I try to push notifications on people. So I remove all sorts of notifications. I use something called Freedom app. I'm a little bit I have ADD with checking my email and my LinkedIn and my Snapchat and that stuff. So I can't do anything about And Freedom app's really cool. You install it on your computer and then you tell them to block all of these websites for like 2-3 hours. So even though you go to them, it doesn't open. I also have like noise canceling headphones from Bose, like Quiet Comfort 35. Perfect to cancel all of the noise. And we work with something called OKRs, which are objective key results. And that helps us, me personally, and the company have really good focus with 3-month sprints. So you set up objectives and then quantified key results. You guys can Google it. It's really cool. OKRs, it's what Google uses. And that allows you to keep focus for like 2-3 months and not be all over the place.
Which is, at least you're ticking off goals on the way to that. And rather than we're working on this for a year, or we've got this project that's a week and this one's that's 10 months, and a bit of morale and culture can be lost in the mix there.
Agree. Yeah.
Cool. So we've got a last few questions just to round up, as I'm conscious of everyone's time. What's one or two books that I guess have either influenced you that you love or that you think would be great for the audience to check out?
Yeah, so there's one, it's called Lean Analytics by Alistair Crowell. It sounds boring, but it's absolutely amazing book. You read that book and you understand every business model online around, called Lean Analytics by Alistair Crowell and Ben Yoskowitz. And I guess the second one would be Principles of Persuasion by Cialdini. It's just a book about he was one of the first behavioral psychologists, and it really explains how the brain works and how you can influence people by using certain principles, both online and offline. So that's it's called Persuasion.
Wow, I'm going to definitely check both of those out because they sound like two areas that I'm definitely lacking.
Me too, don't worry. Still.
What is we've got two more questions. What does a normal day look like for you, if there's such a thing?
Yeah. Wake up at 6. I like to batch emails in the morning really early to get them out of the way. I help get kids ready for school. I have 2 kids. That's from 7 to 8. Then I get at work around between 8:30 or 9:15. 9 to 6 p.m. work, and focus. And then 6 to 9, it's family time. And then 9 to 12 is where I do my researching, my writing, and also my reading, listening to podcasts. Podcasts are amazing. Fall asleep around 12:30 p.m. or a.m., 1:30 midnight, and then just start again the next day.
Nice. And final question, and I know this is going to be a difficult one for you to answer, only because of something you said earlier in the interview, but 2 years' time, what are you doing and where are you doing it?
Oof. In 2 years' time, we've built the Stanford for technical marketing out of Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and we've got 2 or 3 other campuses around Europe.
Awesome. That's so awesome. I love things that can be the university of not being a university, and teach practical things that can be implemented straight away and aren't necessarily like you passed with distinction. It's like you passed and you can get results right now, which I think is absolutely exciting. So I look forward to catching up on that in a couple of years' time. And thank you for coming on and just welcome you to the Youngpreneurs family, and thank you for giving up your time and coming on and sharing with us. But if people want to check out more about growth hacking, more about you, where can they go? What can they do?
So come to growthtribe.io. We didn't get the .com, so it's growthtribe.io, and you can sign up to our free email course. We just share 15% of all of our knowledge on an email course. And then if you want to ask me any questions, I'm addicted to LinkedIn. So David Arnoux, Arnoux, Arnoux on LinkedIn, and also on Twitter, where I'm Darnox, Darnocks. Just look me up on LinkedIn. I've got all my stuff up there.
Wicked. Well, we'll link all of that for anyone who hasn't got a pen and paper handy at passiveincomeyoung.com as usual. But thanks again so much. Really enjoyed it, and I've got so much that I want to go out and learn and implement now from this interview. So thanks a lot.
Cool. And just thanks, Victor, for doing the podcast. It's really important. I get, I think, 50% of all of my knowledge from guys like you making these podcasts, which are incredible, so full of knowledge, and you just learn from all these other people. So thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Youngpreneurs podcast. This was proudly brought to you by the Podcast Institute, the #1 training resource to take your business from chasing leads to leads chasing you, and from an absolute amateur to a full-blown authority. If you're looking to take your business to the next level, then a podcast is the obvious answer. You can get national and global exposure in a very fast time, and it's just exactly what I've done with this podcast. So if you want to find out more, get a checklist on how you can get started for under $60, and to find out more through a small training video that I've prepared for you all, then please check out passiveincomeyoung.com/podcast training.